All communication is infinite. Any information, person, place, thing, situation, art that you might come across, words that you might come across, well, they have the ability to stick with you. They can stay. Sometimes we're not even aware of it until we have a moment. Sometimes decades later, a moment when we remember that person, place, thing, situation, information, art, the memory of it comes back and it makes all the difference to us in that moment. And in that way, anything that we're exposed to forever becomes part of our psyche. Now, for me, one of these really uncanny moments that really has stuck with me, I mean, I will remember it at the most random times, but usually at a time when I really need to remember it. Well, it took place at the season finale of this reality show back in 2004 called Mad House. Now, this show had like these mentors, and they included a vampire, a priestess, a witch, and a naturalist. And there were a series of contestants as well who were all trying to change their life in some way. Anyways, we get to the season finale of this show. And we have the naturalist, David Avocado Wolf, and he recites this poem that has forever stuck with me decades ago. And the poem is Begin Again. You can, you know, you can find a better way to go. Forget the past is dead, and all tomorrow lies ahead. It is never too late to start, to bring to fruition that dream in your heart. Begin again now, this minute, this day. A new life awaits you. Don't wish it away. On the 13th or 14th of February, 2026, depending on where you are on the planet, well, that is when we are going to have such a moment when we get to begin again. Now, as much as it is a moment, it's actually a swath of time that's going to take us right to the end of next week and beyond. And that is, at least for now, Saturn moving into the sign of Aries. Now, what happens the week after is that Saturn rushes towards Neptune and they meet at 0 of Aries. This is what's called the Aries point, a world point of the zodiac. And if anything suggests that a lot of us are going to be feeling ready to begin again, this really would be it. But that energy of beginnings, it is going to feel very strong right out of the gate as soon as Saturn enters the sign of Aries. From May 24th, 2025, right to the 2nd of September 2025, we got a little bit of a taste of this energy. But just as we were starting to get into this energy, well, Saturn retrograded back into the sign of Pisces to wrap up some loose ends, representing a larger journey of about 3 years. Well, now here we are. That larger Saturn in Pisces energy is going to be done. And Saturn will much more comfortably now move into Aries for a nice long stay into April of 2028. But right out of the gate, that's when we feel the energy most. When a big energy like Saturn changes signs, we know that we have changed. Our focus changes. And where it is that we feel some of our most important learning is set to take place, well, that changes as well. Wherever Saturn goes, we ask ourselves a few important things. One is, can I do this for the rest of my life? And the other is, what is the long-term consequence? What am I actually building? What am I willing to sacrifice? What can I do right now to set me up for even bigger gains in the fullness of time? But Saturn also invites us to contemplate the sacrifices that have already taken place. And where it is that we realize we've gone as far as we're going to, well, it is Saturn that encourages us to cut our losses and to focus instead on what actually is, manifesting something that feels right for this next step, this next stage of our life. All of us are going to be having such a realization now, but one thing I can say for sure, this is the first sign of the zodiac, and that means beginnings. That means fresh energy and a fresh new start. Forget the past. The past, really no longer exists, especially when it is that Saturn steps into the sign of Aries. We know we are stepping into brand new territory, into a brand new cycle, and we're willing to work to make the most of it now. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of February 8, 2026. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Synchronicity University is proud to present Big Dogs, Shining Stars, and Living Legends coming up this March 2026. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, to learn from the likes of Gemini Brett, Stephen Forrest, Melissa Sinova, me, and many more, only at synchronicityuniversity.com. Learn more, sign up now, links below. And thank you to my sponsor, otterspirit.com. Use code Nadiya20 at checkout for a discount. And stay tuned, I've got a lot more to say on how amazing they are. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to you about Neptune changing signs, moving into the sign of Aries. And it is Neptune that is an energy that is very dreamy, very fantastical. Saturn is often presented in contrast to that. Saturn represents stability, structure, and the big picture, the long term. Saturn has to do with the legacies that we are creating and those actions that we might consistently take that fuel self-respect. In fact, I would say that's ultimately what Saturn really wants. It wants us to behave in a way that allows us to respect ourselves. And that's not necessarily about what manifests or the actions of others. It's about the choices that we make, the dedication that we show. But there's a interesting contrast to even understanding that dedication. Because that dedication might look like it is to a certain person, place, thing, or situation, but it is ultimately to ourselves. To know that we gave what we had to give, that we did what it was that we could do, and that we strived to be honest with ourselves. In its highest understanding, Saturn asks us to take ownership for our happiness. That is one of the highest expressions of any Saturn journey, Saturn transit. Now, for the collective, Saturn is stepping back into the sign of Aries for a nice long stay. And Saturn now is going to invite us to look at self-empowerment, individuality, and where it is that we might be ready to harness the sacred power of free will, to understand where we have power, where we don't, and to focus only on those things that we can control and to dedicate our efforts in that direction. But what's interesting about the energy of Aries, Aries is also the energy of the first breath, right? It's the energy of us simply being, simply existing, which is why it is a sign very often associated with the first couple of years of life, of babies, of early childhood, not just early childhood education. That comes a little bit later when we look at the archetypal energy of Gemini. But in the sign of Aries, with the sign of Aries, we rather see the fact that beingness, presence, existence itself, and with Saturn here, that alone means that it is worthy of respect. It is worthy of acknowledgement. Aries is an energy of childhood and childlike wonder, childlike play. And Saturn encourages us to be serious about those things that make us happy on that very fundamental level. What's fun? What's light? What feels like play? And to get serious about that, what does it look like to actively engage those activities more regularly, or to use those very things that bring us a sense of play, well, to use them towards our larger success as we uniquely define success? And in fact, the definition of success itself does go through a change wherever it is that Saturn goes. Saturn in Pisces said that compassion and giving of oneself putting ego aside, forgetting of oneself, these are measures of success. But Saturn and Aries might feel like a big contrast to that, because it says that no, what you want, that first impulse and whom it is that you are, that alone, and trusting that puts you in alignment with success. Now, there are different ways to understand that, of course. Sometimes with Aries energy, it's force, even brute force. It's the physical sense of being strong that is the measure of success. But for others still, it is simply the right to exist as you are, with those very immediate identities that you have, to be left alone to exist. That is where success is found. To be able to go your own way and do your own things, however independently or individually as you feel called towards. The energy of Aries also reflects strength. Now, strength can be understood differently. Sometimes it is strength of spirit, but in the energy of Aries, it's strength of body, of physicality. And how that aligns us with longevity might come into greater focus. Now, of course, for some, the performance of health is seen as success, but that tends to represent different parts of the sky. That has more to do with the show. The show of strength, that's a lot more associated with energies like Leo, for example, even Capricorn, I would say. But this is Aries, and it's about beingness, it's about presence, and the actual embodiment of physical strength as a sign of being able to align with longevity, which is a big part of what Saturn represents, is part of what might come into greater focus for more of us out there. Remember, I said earlier, Saturn says, can I do this for the rest of my life? Can I do this consistently? Is this going to set me up for greater gains in the fullness of time? That comes into consideration where it comes to how it is we understand our muscles and our musculature structure. The part of the body that Aries represents also has to do with the skull. It has to do with the eyes as well. And these are going to be areas that are looked at for practical gains and measures of longevity. How to make eyesight last longer. We likely are going to feel like there are advancements and a greater focus on what we can do so that that takes place. How can we make muscles be stronger for longer? How is it that we can help people where skull issues, fractures have taken place so that it fuels longevity? All of that might take greater consideration in the years ahead. Aries is known to be reckless and impulsive, but Saturn is presented as almost the opposite of that. It is much more restrained, more nuanced, and more interested in the longer term consequences rather than the immediate expression. The cost to the long term, when it is that we don't consider the long term and instead give into the impulse of the immediacy, is going to be a hard lesson for some of us out there. But how we harness impulse to our advantage, especially our long-term advantage, might be part of what some of us are taking into consideration. But wherever Saturn goes, it's like this, well, some people say taskmaster. I think it's attention. And again, consequence comes into focus here. And we are much more likely to find ourselves feeling as if impulsive action and outbursts are not acceptable. There's a desire to bring greater restraint to these impulses, or at least to be wise in their application, to take ownership for when it is that we have certain impulsive choices or outputs or outbursts even as well. Well, how might we use that to our long-term advantage, and what is the long-term consequence? I think that we are going to see greater focus spent on this. Aries represents our most immediate identity, those very first things that come to mind when we say, I am. And how is it that those immediate identities are malleable, are fluid, but where is it that some of those immediate identities actually help us to feel stable, actually are those that are long lasting? I think more of us, as part of our own individual journeys, are going to be making these very important distinctions now. What's interesting as part of this larger journey is that Saturn is now stepping into Aries, but consider that Pluto is in Aquarius, a very social energy. And we've also got in April, Uranus about to step into Gemini, another very social energy. It looks at our interactions with others to define the self. But Aries can be seen in contrast to that because it isn't really thinking about anyone else other than the self. And by focusing on the self, that is going to determine how we get along with others. But I do think that for more of us, we're going to realize whom it is we actually owe something to is ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to be ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to decide how we're going to direct our energy. We owe it to ourselves to be happy. There are certain things that no one else can do for us other than what we can do for ourselves. And I think more of us are going to bring attention to these very matters. What is it that only we can do? And how can we take responsibility for those very things? There's going to, at the very least, be encouragement in that direction. What do we owe each other? I think that is going to be a big part of the question that we are exploring in this second half of this decade as part of the collective. But at least now, with first Neptune and now Saturn moving into Aries, there's going to be that contrasting question of what do we owe ourselves, not just each other, but where is it that others end and I begin? And where is it that whatever that I is has to take precedence? Well, I think what Saturn and Aries, one piece of that is it affecting my happiness? Is it affecting my ability to be at peace with myself? Because self-sacrificing, that might have been good with Saturn in Pisces, but that just doesn't work for Saturn in Aries. Now, wherever Saturn goes, I've also found that we will give it our all. Sometimes it's sort of like this last push, this last sacrifice, or this last burst of really needing to be honest with ourselves. And for some of us, it's going to be where we haven't prioritized ourselves enough. But for others, the lesson just might be where it is that we've been too self-centered. And what are the consequences of that? They start to be that much more apparent. No person is an island. No person lives on their own. And yet, as much as we need each other, there's also something very powerful that happens when we realize that we have ourselves. And if you have yourself, you have everything. And that's a big part of Saturn in Aries. It's going to encourage us to understand what it is to be in the presence and be in the truth of whom it is that we are, and to find a deep satisfaction in that space, regardless of what anyone or anyone else thinks of it. But there's something amazing that happens when it is that we are true to ourselves, and that is the support we need, the people we need. They have a way of finding their way to us, or we have a way of finding our way to them. It'll be interesting to see how Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, these are energies that are very communication based, and they are energies that have to do with technologies, especially the technologies we use to communicate with each other. But the energy of Saturn in Aries, no less, meeting Neptune the following week, that exact conjunction to the minute is going to be felt right out of the gate. And yet it perfects to the minute right around the 19th or 20th of February, depending on where you are on the planet. That stands very much in contrast to technology. It is so much more visceral an energy. It's so much more an embodied energy. And I think we are going to see this really interesting contrast between people who are being asked to be present and how they feel about that, especially in light of the fact that the virtual might have been doing just well for them. And for some, there's even going to be some sense of a revolt against the actual virtual worlds that there are. And by revolt, I don't necessarily mean that there's going to be a sense of being very passionate about being adamantly against, but rather it's going to be about being honest with ourselves about where it is that we need real experiences, where it is that we need to be present, where it is that we have a desire to feel that much more fully. I don't think it's an accident that in the last few weeks, especially as soon as Neptune moved into the sign of Aries, and now it's going to accelerate that much more with Saturn in Aries. Well, for more of us, there's been this call to be fully back to work, fully back into those environments that we left behind, sometimes partially, sometimes fully in the pandemic era. But now on the other side, I think a lot of people are going to be feeling ready to really leave that behind us. And it's not so much about going back to the way that things were, but being honest with ourselves about where it is that we want to be more engaged. For some, that's going to be more engaged in their work, so actually going to the workplace. But for others, being more engaged means placing less priority on certain structures, including corporate structures, for example, so that they're doing things more independently, but still setting themselves up for success, aligning themselves for the growth that they wish to experience, but for themselves, not necessarily in service of a given corporation and its goals. We are that much more willing to work on what it is that we feel we want, what it is that makes us happy. And if that means just having work on the side, online, so that we can do what we really want to do, well, some of us might be willing to make that compromise, but I think more and more of us are likely going to feel like those compromises, they aren't worth it to us. We want to go all or nothing in a particular direction that actually makes us happy. And finding a practical pathway towards it is going to be part of what we're striving to do now. In tarot, it is the Emperor card that is most strongly associated with the energy of Aries. And the Emperor card is interesting because it is somebody who has power. That's what we see in this card. It's someone with authority. And it's someone with the ability to direct their force towards the outcomes that they want. Their beingness, their embodiment in and of itself commands power, but they also have the ability to take initiative, to move in those directions that they desire to go. There's power that's understood in different ways, right? Some say that the tarot, the major arcana in particular, represents the hero's journey, which would begin with the Fool card, right? That is the innocence that is needed to even begin any kind of journey. But there comes a point as part of those steps in the hero's journey when you realize that if it's going to be, it's up to you. If it's going to be, it's you that has to harness your own personal power, make a choice, and take a step in the direction that you feel called to go. And that means personal responsibility of a sort. That means recognizing the power that you actually have. And it is at this step, at the Emperor card, that we then are able to embrace the power that we have and to stake it, to claim it, and to even, I would say, radiate it as well. This is an energy of commanding presence. But with Saturn in Aries, it's also about commanding respect, simply for being. One of my favorite understandings of Saturn comes from the Renaissance astrologer Marcello Ficino. And Ficino called Saturn the Christ principle. And he said that because he looked at Saturn as a Catholic priest, which he was, and he felt like it represented faith without works is dead, that phrase, that idea. it represented the notion that it's one thing to believe. That's great. That's very Neptunian. Faith alone is enough. But what you actually do, what you actually demonstrate, shows you what you actually have faith in. And if you actually have faith, you'll take action in support of it. And that is part of what more and more of us are going to be encouraged to do, to have faith in ourselves enough to take action in support of ourselves, to believe in ourselves enough to take action in support of the self. It's one thing to say, I have faith and I'm going to give, right? Giving of the self so that you lose the self, so that you might find bliss on the other side. That is Pisces. But Aries says, no, I am as I am, and I am going to act from that place of having faith in me and whom it is that I am. And I'm going to demonstrate that and make that faith stronger in the process. Figuring out the steps we need to take to embrace the spiritual warrior energy within us. What has to practically and consistently happen? What spirit do we need to bring to those sacred battles that all of us fight in one way or another? But where might we find greater power in the process? A lot of us are going to be taking up that mantle, finding our answers for ourselves, and committing to the journey of feeling stronger as we go ahead. So that's Saturn in Aries. Again, that's going to be a standalone. I will edit that out and put that out there. But in the context of this week, let's talk about what's happening this week on the lead up to Saturn changing signs late in the week. And right out of the gate on Sunday, Venus will square Uranus before changing signs on Tuesday, moving into the sign of Pisces. Venus square Uranus is fascinating. It is not the time to plan a romantic surprise. In fact, romantic surprises can go in all kinds of directions that feel wonky at best. But this is also searingly, uncomfortably honest in its own way as well. Any plans that we make, especially related to not just love, but also possibly money, pleasure, joy, gatherings, all of these might not go as planned. They have the ability to turn upside down when we least expect them. But I do think for a lot of us out there, this just might make for some interesting stories. And I like to think there aren't enough surprises in life as it is. But in our own individual journeys, especially when it comes to Venusian matters, having them go wonky can be that much more uncomfortable. Now, it is Venus in Aquarius as we start this week. So this energy is likely to show up that much more where it comes to our social interactions with others. It is Uranus that is now in its last few weeks moving through the sign of Taurus, where we have had Uranus going all the way back to 2018. That's how long the journey has been. And so having this square says a few things. It says whatever the needs of the collective or the needs of a group might be, where is it that money comes into it? And where are we okay with that? Where are we not? Where is money and friendship working for us? Where is it not? I think that's going to be part of the contemplation for some of us out there. But also, where is it that people interfere with our own sense of where we are in love, the options we feel we have available to us, where we are in terms of self-love, where that works for us, where it doesn't. And I think some of us might have some pretty surprising reactions to the ways in which other people are acting that ultimately have us taking a stand in the direction of demonstrating that we actually do value ourselves. We actually do love ourselves. And where it is that we recognize that we've been cutting ourselves short, as they say, we haven't been giving ourselves enough credit. Well, there might be a moment that feels like it pushes some buttons, but encourages us to do just that, to take a stand, and through our own actions, show ourselves that we actually have more self-love and self-respect than we previously appreciated. Now, once it is that Venus does change signs on Tuesday, Venus in the sign of Pisces is about how love and sacrifice go together. But I think there's another understanding of Venus moving through Pisces, and that is, remember, this is happening just before Saturn leaves Pisces. And Venus is a much faster transit. We're looking at about 4 weeks of Venus moving through this sign. Just as Saturn is leaving, Venus is entering. And to me, this represents bringing love to what might have been a hard journey for some of us, where it is we didn't realize that we felt restricted or held back. Now, with Venus, we're invited to bring sweetness and light and even forgiveness where we might need it. We're invited to bring a more compassionate spirit to ourselves in the context of where it was that perhaps we sacrificed way too much. And now we're able to see it more clearly and choose something different. Now, love being sacrificed, that's an interesting way to understand love, but the ancients did like Venus in Pisces. They thought it was here that Venus was able to bring out her more universal love capabilities. And that's what we're going to see in ourselves and in others, how it is that universal love plays out. Universal love is fascinating because it's not always about people. Our individual interactions with others might not be sweeter and lighter, but our belief in a higher love might have us making choices and decisions that, yes, involve sacrifice, but are because we believe in a higher oneness. Willing to sacrifice for that, for individuals, that can be a little iffy, depending on whom it is that you ask, especially with Venus moving through Pisces. Venus in Pisces wants the fairy tale. It wants to be swept up in a moment, swept up off our feet. And this is where the glitz, the glamour, the sweetness, the whining and dining, like that type of love, that type of romance is emphasized for us. And we might see some truly over the top types of declarations or statements taking place in the context of love. Declarations of love that really feel like they became very fantastical. At the same time, we might hear more about people who might have felt swindled as a result of love, carried up into a fantasy that didn't have that balance of groundedness. This is also the energy of love bombing. I will say that as well. But remember, in a few weeks' time, Venus will meet Saturn. That makes for the most real day in love of the year. That is a reality bites, love bites type of moment. As much as we allow ourselves to go high, to go into the clouds, of get very swept up now, the more likely it is that the reality of a given situation, especially if we're not aware of the reality, especially if there hasn't been long-term demonstrations, well, it is going to be very soon, once it is that we get into the month of March, that some of us are going to feel like we are having a big reality check moment, and things could really flip in the context of new people that we might meet now that feel like a dream come true. And on Wednesday at 8 degrees of Pisces, Mercury will step into shadow, beginning the larger Mercury retrograde season. Mercury is not retrograde yet. Mercury will go retrograde on the 26th of February. And 3 weeks later, after that, in the middle of March, will go direct. And then 3 weeks after that, will leave shadow. And what that means is right now, this Wednesday, Mercury begins to walk a path that Mercury will eventually go retrograde on, will begin to walk backwards on. So this is the first pass. And this is where stuff comes up. It's a good idea to pay attention to what's happening in your life. Now, if it is that you are a student of astrology, pay attention to whatever it is that's right around 8 degrees in your chart. It is at the 8th degree of Pisces that Mercury is stepping into shadow. And as Mercury goes forward, eventually will go retrograde. And once it is that we get to the middle of March, that is when Mercury will return to where Mercury is this week, in the second half of this week in particular. And it is in the middle of March that whatever's happening for us right now might look very different when it is that we get there. And so, I like to say, pace yourself and be yourself. You want to remember that now, but also stay open to possibility. The stuff that you really want to pay attention to is what seems to be coming back around. What's reawakening now? Where is it that reconnection seem like a possibility? That's what you want to pay attention to, but also pay attention to your life, because whatever's arising right about now, as I said, you just might see it very differently once it is that we get to the middle of March. That is when it will, for some, be a big light bulb moment. Like, oh, okay, that's what was really going on. That's what they really meant. That's what an opportunity actually entailed, what it actually represented. You're able to see it differently, more clearly, and yes, in a way that helps you to understand where you're going to go forward from there. Right now, not as much about going forward as it is about observation, knowing that lessons will reemerge and reawakenings are set to take place with what it is that feels so forward moving now. We like to say 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? That's part of how life can sometimes work. It is Mercury retrograde that shows us this 2 steps forward, 1 step back motion that life embodies. And for some of us, we might not even realize how we're actually in that zone right now of where we soon will be taking a step back. So pay attention, but also trust your life. If it feels like something's got to happen now, then it's got to happen. For example, I know sometimes people contact me and they say, my lease is up. I'm being told I have to leave. What do I do? Mercury's in shadow. Mercury's going to be retrograde by the time I leave. And I'm like, in those cases, you really have to trust your life and know that what you think it is, especially with Mercury shadow, but what you think it is and what it ends up being could be very different things. And so just pace yourself as you navigate this time. It has its wisdom to it. And the wisdom of any larger Mercury retrograde season is always to be honest with ourselves. But it's also about being open to how it is that sometimes the universe has a greater plan for us than anything we could have planned for ourselves. And the universe has this way of bringing back people, places, things, situations, opportunities that we thought were lost, but actually they come back in a form that's even better than they were before. I think that's going to be a big signature of this larger Mercury retrograde season for a lot of us out there. And I spoke about that for each and every sign in the monthly horoscope for the month of February here on my YouTube channel. You might want to watch that again. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. I'm going to say Saturn moving into Aries. This is such a big deal of an energy. It represents the beginning of a brand new cycle in so many ways. So in one way, well, every 28 and a half years, Saturn will come back to 0 degrees of Aries, beginning a brand new journey all the way around the zodiac, 28 and a half years in the making. But this time, what makes it even more special, even more rare, is that as Saturn steps into the sign of Aries, is going to rush to meet Neptune at 0 degrees at the very beginning of this sign, the very first degree out of 360 degrees of all the zodiac. It is going to be Saturn that will meet Neptune here. Talk about a massive reset for the collective, for our understanding of spirit and matter, of body and soul, and so much more. In many ways, this is about beginning again in our own lives, rooted in knowing ourselves more honestly and more deeply. Now, that awareness, that reboot, that reset is going to be felt before this week is even out. And I want you to consider this as well. This is happening either on Valentine's Day or just before Valentine's Day on Friday the 13th. And what that means is this particular Valentine's Day is going to hold the seeds of self-honesty, but also new beginnings. Now, for some, those new beginnings mean starting a brand new cycle with someone, of deepening commitment, of feeling more rooted in a singularity of togetherness. It's a brand new chapter of life that brings two people together. But for others, though, this is going to be being honest with yourself about what isn't working in your life and in love, and going another way, a more individual way at that. And that is only going to be emphasized that much more next week. We have got a solar eclipse squaring Uranus, right? It's a surprise a minute, a shock a minute energy. And we're also going to have the exact to the minute conjunction of Saturn and Neptune as well. And so a lot of that energy of beginnings, of going in new directions, they might look sudden, especially next week and on the surface, but for a lot of us, they will have been a long time coming. We are ready to begin again where it really matters to us, whether that is in romantic love, in self-love. And being honest with ourselves, taking ownership for our happiness will ultimately put us on paths that are a lot more stable and a lot more rooted in healthy self-respect, and making choices from that place. Well, it moves us in a direction that helps us to feel like we really are building something that could last for the rest of our lives. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here's some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes each and every week for as low as just $3 a month with choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. And thank you to my amazing sponsor once again, Otter Spirit, where you can use the code Nadiya20 at checkout for a discount. Now, you've seen Otter Spirit on my channel before. I am hooked up with them right now here. You can see these top three. These are like their mini size bracelets. And then these are their regular size bracelets. It's not the first time I'm working with them. I love working with them. And actually, my aunt, who is a numerologist, Humara Hyder, you've seen her on my channel before, she was telling me that, oh, for this year, you really should wear this stone, you should wear this stone, as part of aligning with bringing forward the best potentials of the numerology of this year for me personally. And I was like, well, I know a company that has like the best quality stones, right? They make beautiful stones, and you can feel their power. I remember showing her one of these bracelets. I kind of took it off and she held it, and she was like, oh my God, these energies are so powerful in these. Wow. And yeah, that's the thing. Something about Otter Spirit stones, they really are very special. If you haven't checked them out for yourself, you might want to do that. I have really been enjoying these mini-sized ones because I wanted to start stacking them and I wanted to start wearing more of them. So I'm glad I got those. But of course, these are the regular size ones that I've been using for a long time as well. So again, thank you so much, Otter Spirit, for being one of my sponsors. I'm so grateful for it. And for everybody out there, yes, use my code for a discount at checkout, and all those links are below. Synchronicity University is proud to present an absolutely incredible March 2026 season. Oh my God, talk about big dogs, talk about living legends. Just wow, this is such a special month coming up ahead. And right now, as you're watching this, you've got just a little time left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from these incredible teachers and speakers. I'm going to start with the one and only big dog astrologer, Gemini Brett. We just announced Gemini Brett a few days ago, and he's going to be teaching sacred geometry. This is the very first time at Synchronicity University and our 10 years plus history that we are actually presenting a course on sacred geometry. And we really are starting at the top with Gemini Brett. He is a hugely popular and influential astrologer. He is just so poetic, and he has a way of taking what otherwise would be ephemeral and intangible and making it real, making it something that you can use, that you can access to your advantage to make you a better astrologer or just more aware of your place in the universe. And so he is a master teacher. I recently published my interview with him, and boy, did so many of you love that interview so much. Because with Gemini, I mean, he's just such a pro that there's not really a whole lot I need to do. Like, I just gotta get out of the way and let him do his thing, because he is so poetic. He's able to just really help you to understand an idea in a way that is meant to reach you on a level of soul. It's not about some intellectual step-by-step understanding A plus B equals 5, right? It's none of that. It's a lot more about, can you feel this? Can you know this? Because you already know it, because your soul knows it, because this is part of the universalness that you are a part of, because you are part of everyone and everything. This is the wisdom of the soul, and you are here in a journey of soul. And it is Gemini that does nothing less than awaken us on that level of soul wisdom. That's already there. He's just reminding you it's there. And he's going to bring that understanding to sacred geometry now. This is a class to take. If there's ever a class that you want to take, it's this one. Only at synchronicityuniversity.com. Now, this is the only place in the world that you can learn from Gemini Brett at this lower rate, just $5 a class, an unheard of rate to learn from the one and only big dog astrologer, one of our most celebrated astrologers today, the one and only Gemini Brett at Synchronicity University. Learn more, sign up now, links below. Synchronicity University is proud to present an absolutely incredible speaker series. Talk about big dogs and living legends. What? I am so excited about this cohort. We have, as part of this March 2026 speaker series, the one and only one of the living legends in the world today in astrology, Stephen Forrest. He is a pioneer of evolutionary astrology, and he's absolutely brilliant and so heartfelt. He has so much to share. He is the author of many books. I think it's at least 16 books the last time I counted. He is that prolific an astrologer, and he has made his mark on astrology today. He is someone who astrology will remember for hundreds of years to come. And here you are, you get a chance to learn from him. As part of this speaker series, he is going to be live. Now, previously, Stephen let us use one of his previous classes to do a watch party. So basically, I was there, we watched his previous class together, we talked about it as we went along. It was a wonderful experience. But this is going to be Stephen teaching live in real time, present with you. A 1-hour class he is going to be presenting. And so, yeah, learning from Stephen at this low a rate, just $5 a class, it is unheard of. This is the only place on the planet that you are going to learn from Stephen Forrest at that low a rate. The one and only living legend, Stephen Forrest at Synchronicity University. But this is a speaker series, so that's not all. We are also going to have a very big dog in tarot, Melissa Sanova, also the author of books on tarot. She is so brilliant. I love her. She's got all this Sag energy. I always get along with her so well. She is brilliant and effervescent, and she has this really Sagittarian off-the-cuff way of teaching that is very no-nonsense. She swears when she teaches. I love that. We had one person who didn't like that over the years, but she's been with us so many times. And she is just so straightforward. And it is all about getting you to be better. So she's going to be coming to Synchronicity University as well. I'm so looking forward to her. We have other favorites that are going to be joining. One is Alejandro Ruiz. Alejandro teaches on traditional and Islamic astrology. He's so passionate about that. And he's going to be teaching on the lots, right? Some of the more notable lots that might not be nearly as well used as the part of fortune or the lot of fortune. And yet he's going to bring that traditional understanding. And he taught a single class with us a while back, and it was so popular. I mean, all these students were contacting us and saying, can you bring Alejandro back? Can we have a course with Alejandro? Because he knows so much. So this is a class you also are not going to want to miss. Hannah Terajura. Hannah is amazing. I love her. I've taught with her at the Omega Institute. It was the one and only Maurice Fernandez, who you've seen on my channel, who you've seen at Synchronicity University before. Well, Maurice is the one who actually put together this incredible event at the Omega Institute. And I was there teaching. She was there teaching. She is so ready. She is such an expert. She is so brilliant. And so she's coming back to Synchronicity University as well. And one of your favorites, Jill Loftus of Nui Astrology as well. She's coming back to Synchronicity University. You've seen her on my channel tons and tons of times. She's helped fill in when I needed her to, and I love her for that and so much more. So you can see we've got this incredible cohort with us for March 2026, the speaker series. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, to learn from living legends, big dogs, and future massive stars of astrology, only at Synchronicity University. Learn more, sign up now, links below. And I am coming to Synchronicity University, and this time I've got 2 programs that I will be teaching this March. I cannot wait. I'm going to start with the fact that for the first time ever, now if you've watched me for a while, if you've taken classes with me before, you know I love to dive into the myths of the planets. It was Plato in Timaeus who says that the planets are the very first physical manifestation of the gods, making them that much more important in the sky. And I have loved the planets. I have seen them as sacred energies that express us. But the truth is, all the signs are in us as well. And for the first time ever, I am going to begin teaching the myths of the signs as part of a brand new, larger course. We are looking at the first workshop series of 4, and we are going to start with the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And this is where we are going to look at the mythologies as part of a larger program I'm calling You Are Legend. You are legend, living the myth of your life. We are going to focus more on sun signs here and how that expresses something about the myth that you are living. But once you understand the signs, you really can apply that wisdom to any planet in the sky as well. So it is a grounding in the signs themselves. But my hope is that those of you who maybe don't know astrology that well, or you're at that place where you're a fan of astrology, but you want to start stepping into being more of a student. But even if you know your sun really, really well, I am hoping that this series of workshops will help you to see greater nuance and help you to see how it is that you are living that myth right now, so that you can do so that much more intentionally, to see your life as a living legend in its own right. That is my intention with this. So I hope that you will join me. We are going to do material I have never covered before, brand new material to look at. It's going to be so much fun. We are going to start with the fire signs, as I said. And starting right now, you've got a very limited time left to take this first series of workshops for just $25 for the whole pack. The 3 fire signs for just $25. That is an unheard of rate of which to dive into sun sign astrology with greater depth, greater nuance. And I hope you love it so much. Thank you for your trust and for joining me. You can learn a lot more about this workshop series and sign up now at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links below. Synchronicity University is proud to present part 4 of my Astrology of Past Lives series. Here we are, the fourth of 6 larger courses, at the end of which, once it is that you've taken all 6, you get a certificate of completion, which is very exciting. But also know, whether you take this as a standalone, whether it is that you didn't take the previous classes and you want to catch up, those are available as add-ons for as low as just $5 a class. Wherever you are in that journey, I just thank you. And again, this can be just a standalone if you want to learn with greater nuance, more about Neptune, more about the 8th house and the 4th house in the context of past life astrology. That's what we're focused on here, past life astrology for this course. So we are back with this, and I'm so looking forward to this program. As I said, we're going to dive more into Neptune, more into the 4th house, more into the 8th house over the course of 5 weeks, only at synchronicityuniversity.com. The astrology of past lives, looking at the chart to understand what past life lessons, tendencies you are bringing in so that you can use this lifetime that much better, that much more well, and feel as if you're able to use this lifetime to build on what was before, to gear yourself up for the next, and so much more. Bringing consciousness to the chart, another perspective to the chart, is what we're going to explore in this class. So learn a lot more. Sign up now, links below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. Stay tuned now for short horoscopes coming up right now. I am just so grateful for you out there. Sending you massive hugs. I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful Valentine's Day. Love yourself. Love yourself. It really is the most powerful type of love that you're ever going to know. That relationship with you, really, if you have you, you have everything. I really do believe that. And I think that's a big part of what this Valentine's Day is going to try to show us. And the thing is, when you have you also have so much more to give in love with life, and in romantic love as well. Whatever it is for you, I hope you absolutely enjoy it. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. On the 13th or 14th of February, 2026, depending on where you are on the planet, well, that is when we are going to have such a moment when we get to begin again. Now, as much as it is a moment, it's actually a swath of time that's going to take us right to the end of next week and beyond. And that is, at least for now, Saturn moving into the sign of Aries. Now, what happens the week after is that Saturn rushes towards Neptune and they meet at 0 of Aries. This is what's called the Aries point, a world point of the zodiac. And if anything suggests that a lot of us are going to be feeling ready to begin again, this really would be it. But that energy of beginnings, it is going to feel very strong right out of the gate as soon as Saturn enters the sign of Aries. From May 24th, 2025, right to the 2nd of September 2025, we got a little bit of a taste of this energy. But just as we were starting to get into this energy, well, Saturn retrograded back into the sign of Pisces to wrap up some loose ends, representing a larger journey of about 3 years. Well, now here we are. That larger Saturn in Pisces energy is going to be done. And Saturn will much more comfortably now move into Aries for a nice long stay into April of 2028. But right out of the gate, that's when we feel the energy most. When a big energy like Saturn changes signs, we know that we have changed. Our focus changes. And where it is that we feel some of our most important learning is set to take place, well, that changes as well. Wherever Saturn goes, we ask ourselves a few important things. One is, can I do this for the rest of my life? And the other is, what is the long-term consequence? What am I actually building? What am I willing to sacrifice? What can I do right now to set me up for even bigger gains in the fullness of time? But Saturn also invites us to contemplate the sacrifices that have already taken place and where it is that we realize we've gone as far as we're going to. Well, it is Saturn that encourages us to cut our losses and to focus instead on what actually is, manifesting something that feels right for this next step, this next stage of our life. All of us are going to be having such a realization now, but one thing I can say for sure, this is the first sign of the zodiac, and that means beginnings. That means fresh energy and a fresh new start. Forget the past. The past really no longer exists, especially when it is that Saturn steps into the sign of Aries. We know we are stepping into brand new territory, into a brand new cycle, and we're willing to work to make the most of it now. Now, wherever Saturn goes in your chart, this is where you are invited to grow up and be honest with yourself about whether or not you can do this for the rest of your life. And where that is depends on your sun, moon, and rising. Take all three into consideration, synthesize the information to make it unique to you. And there's lots more horoscopes right now on my YouTube channel, Nadiya_Shah. There are special horoscopes available for Saturn and Aries for your sign, available right now for download at my main website, nadiyashah.com, or as part of your Superstar membership over in the Superstar space at thefutureismagical.com or nadiyashahsuperstars.com. Aries, with Saturn stepping into your sign, this is about owning your own happiness, owning who you are. And it is about a brand new chapter of a larger journey ahead for you, realizing what it is that you need to be happy, making changes in support of it. There's something that is incredibly empowering of really being present with you and understanding that your life is all your own. There's something empowering about that that can take place for you now, but it does start by realizing what you don't have any power over and deciding what you're now going to move forward from. Where it is that there's regret, being able to accept it, but also move on from it might be part of this energy. But for the most part, I think this is going to represent a very exciting new chapter because it's a chapter where you realize what is not yours to worry about, to be burdened about, but also what is yours to work towards. And where it is that you're working towards being true to you, well, that's really where you build something that lasts, very likely for the rest of your life. Taurus, Saturn moving into the sign just before yours is about soul, psyche, and spirit. So much is stirring within, so much happening behind the scenes, under the surface. Now, sometimes with this, it just is an energy of restlessness. You feel restless, and that's okay. It's okay to feel that way, but yeah, you might be feeling some of that. And that actually could be a great way for this energy to just kind of work out in the dream space, your dreams. And your need for rest might be very dominant now and in the next couple of years. And for all of that, though, the other thing that this part of the sky represents is fortunate karmic closures, closing karmic ties, ending karmic chapters, and understanding how, if you look back at your life, there were things that ended and you were really glad for it. You were really grateful for it. You felt like, oh, thank God that is done because now I can do this more. I can live more fully. This part of the sky also has to do with knowing that you have a lot more to do in this lifetime. Even if you don't know what it all looks like just yet, it is about having faith and acting from a place of faith without necessarily knowing what's going to manifest as a result. Now, sometimes with this, stuff comes up, it feels challenging, it feels uncertain, and yet you move through it. And as you move through it, you realize what you have power over, what you don't, and it's a very sacred lesson because it allows you to then hone in and focus in on what it is that you can do and feel stronger in the process. Gemini, friendships, group alliances, they are going to take greater dominance now, and working hard at your friendships, wherever it is that Saturn goes, you tend to feel as if there's more that you have to do to make things come together, more effort to take. But that's because you know on a soul level, that's where your most powerful learning is. And getting along with others is going to be a big part of this energy for you now. So whether that is having to actually participate in professional group endeavors as part of your larger goals, getting more serious about the larger hopes and wishes you have for your life so that you start to manifest them more fully. But it's also about personal friendships as well, the time that you give, what friendships are worth sacrificing for and which are not. Getting honest with yourself about the people that you've called friends, about your participation in certain groups, and where it is perhaps that they've served their purpose. What is the true nature of certain friendships, where you told yourself that certain friendships meant more than they actually did, or where other people thought they were more than they were to you? Well, this is where you get a whole lot more clear about where it is that other people are going to be for you in your life. Relationships and friendships must evolve. They must become something more grown if they are going to continue to last. But those friends who make it through this time very likely are going to stick with you for the rest of your life. Cancer, career, social standing, life purpose, and your understanding of a higher, more loving vision for your life. This is about working on your goals, realizing that what is it that you truly desire to manifest in a higher sense? What do you want your legacy to be? What is your destiny going to be? And what are you willing to give to align with it is going to be part of the effort that you're undertaking now. Wherever Saturn goes, it inspires you to put in the time, to put in the work. The fullness of reaping what it is that is the benefits of that work doesn't usually happen until we get towards the end or just after this larger journey is over. So we're looking at, it might be as long as 2028 before you really feel like you're reaping greater reward as a result of the effort you take now, the sacrifices you make now. But this is where you are encouraged to work towards the things that matter to you and to get honest with yourself about where you're going in a higher sense. Where certain pathways just are not it for you anymore, getting honest about that is a huge step forward, even if it doesn't look like it to other people. But where it is that you're on the journey you're meant to be, this is where you are dedicating yourself that much more fully, getting honest with yourself. And as you do that, you actually do the work, which will pay off, certainly, and tremendously, but in the fullness of time. Now, those that are not necessarily on the career path, this is where you allow healthy change to take place. You find a new sense of higher calling, a new sense of goals that are going to matter to you for this next chapter of your life. And that in turn makes life feel that much more meaningful, that much more guided by a sense of intention and a sense of the legacy that you're creating in real time. Leo, long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, higher learning, and legal matters, as well as the political, philosophical, even religious beliefs that help you to make sense of the world and guide your life. And so for some, getting serious about adventure, getting serious about your engagement in higher education, in things like legal matters, in clarifying your own beliefs for yourself. And wherever Saturn goes, it's like you feel like that's where your most important learning is. And so it is not uncommon for people to find themselves more willing to engage new places, new people, new experiences with this larger transit. This is a part of the sky that has to do with putting things into place that you hope will help you to manifest bigger and better in the fullness of time. It is the area of the sky where you are earning the credentials, where you are making the effort, you are having the vision, you're clarifying for yourself. And it is going to be on the other side of this transit that it starts to pay off in terms of greater success. Now that's coming up. That starts in 2028. But until we get there, and for now, The focus is a lot more on doing what you need to do to know that you've done your part to go in the right way and to ultimately align with what you hope will be a higher direction for your life in the fullness of time. Virgo, change, truth, transformation, regeneration, wealth, and power, how you understand it, how you wield it. So for many a Virgo out there, this is going to be a time when you're looking at what you owe in terms of debt, in terms of sharing resources, everything from loans to grants to benefits that you qualify for. Now, what I found is when we have such strong financial energy, the money you need is there, but you are navigating spiritual lessons as part of aligning with it. So for some, it's going to be getting serious about paying off debt. For others, it's going to be a time when you might choose to take on more debt. And for others still, you might find that the benefits you need, they have a way of coming together, but you are participating in their unfoldment at the same time. Now, outside of that, spiritual wealth, emotional wealth can be part of this time, working towards the transformations you require or desire, and understanding power on your own terms, and being willing to sacrifice for whatever it is that power means to you now and going forward from here. In the context of these spaces and endeavors, you're going to learn some of your most important lessons of power and powerlessness, but also healthy empowerment. By dealing with these things, you earn a sense of self-respect along the way. Libra, partnerships of all kinds, including love. This is about getting very honest with yourself about where you are and whether or not you like it. And this is also an energy that says get honest with yourself about what you actually want where it comes to the partners in your life. For some, there might be challenges in needing to get along with another person, but you do find your right balance. And for some, you might just luck out and find someone to align with where you can share success that just might last for a very long time to come. Now, in love, the ancients believed that this is where things solidified. They move towards greater commitment, especially if it is that you are whatever they call older, whatever that means for you. That really is when you might meet that person or solidify where you are. But remember, Saturn always asks, can I do this for the rest of my life? If you're with somebody and you really don't think this can continue the way that it is for the rest of your life, either it's got to change or you're deciding to go a whole other way. But also possible, this energy can suggest if you're open to meeting someone new, well, either you're getting very clear about what you want for the long term, or you just might meet somebody who is the very embodiment of someone who really could last for a very long time to come. Scorpio, clients, customers, coworkers, your daily life, your work life, your health, and how well you take care of you. This is about honoring the sacredness of the day, using your day-to-day life well and fully. And so for some, you might attract new clients, customers, and coworkers that have the potential to bless your life for a long time to come, or more likely, they'll have you working very hard for the next little while. For others still, though, this is going to be the realization of whom it is that you don't want to work with, where it is that certain clients, customers, or coworkers, they just take too much, they ask for too much, and that isn't working for you anymore. At the same time, the tasks that you're actually doing, the actual work that you do you feel like this is something you could do for the rest of your life or not? Is it worth continuing to do so that you become really good at it or not? You're getting honest with yourself in that regard. Taking on more responsibilities in the workplace can be part of this energy. Now, if you're not in the work track or in addition to the work track, this energy can play out in terms of how well you take care of you. Saturn is all about consistency and the long term. And this is where you might make little changes, being honest with yourself about what you need to do consistently in the small moments as you move towards your larger trajectory of your life actually sets you up for how it is that those little changes can reap benefits, very likely for the rest of your life. Now, sometimes if it feels like health challenges show up, it really just might be a matter of little tweaks to your eating or to your medications that end up having a big and positive benefit. Sagittarius, flirtation, romance, what you want in every area of life, creative fulfillment, and the children in your life as well might be covered here. And so Saturn always asks, can I keep doing this for the rest of my life, right? The way in which you interact with the children in your life, the children you have, the children you want, getting honest with yourself about where you stand with that and putting in the time to reap the reward. And that includes if you want stronger relationships with and a mutual understanding with those kids in your life, including your own children. Now, outside of that, getting serious about a creative endeavor, a creative project, or using your creativity to your advantage, living a more creatively rich life. As I said, romance and flirtation are covered here. Love, your experience in love is covered here. And getting serious about love and fun, what needs to change in a very real way so that you start aligning with greater love-related opportunities? Well, that's part of what you might be working on, putting yourself in those spaces and also growing as a person individually so that you can actually start to move towards, well, feeling as if there's more options available to you in the context of love. Now, for those of you who are already in established relationships, is there love here? Do you feel loved or not? What needs to happen? What needs to change so that you do feel in alignment with love? That's where the work might be. Well, that's where the self-honesty might be as well, as part of figuring out whether or not certain relationships are those that you want to move forward with. Capricorn, home, the past, your living situation, your family of origin, and your parents in particular, where that applies. This is about doing the work to fortify those family relationships. Now, sometimes that can be work that embraces a new stage of life, a new understanding. But at other times, where it is that you've had challenging relationships with family of origin, well, this is going to give you a chance to do the work to understand whether or not those relationships are worth the work to you or not. Are they worth the sacrifice to build those bonds or not is going to be part of the self-honesty you might be reaching. Now, what I found is with Saturn solidifies. So for some, this could be buying, selling, moving, attracting a new roommate who has the potential to last for a very long time to come. But for others, this is about putting things into place. This is the foundation of the chart. And the work that you do now sets the foundation. It's the work that you're doing in private, in your own time and space, that has the potential to reap really big reward years from now. 14 years from now, Saturn will get to the top of your sky, and that's where it is clear as day what it is that you put into place during this phase. Now, that's a long way down the road that you and I both know you blink and you will get there. Where it is that you have a home-based business, you work with homes, this is also a time of putting in the time, making the sacrifice so that your work and your endeavors feel that much stronger, that much more likely to reap reward that could last a very long time to come. Aquarius, siblings, cousins, neighbors. You're about to do a lot more work in terms of understanding those key relationships in your life. And sometimes this is about evolving those relationships. Sometimes it's about recognizing where you have power, where you don't in those bonds as part of understanding what the next step, the next evolution in those key relationships, who stays, who goes, what's that going to look like for you? Now, outside of that, this part of the sky has to do with communication, conversation, expression, teaching, writing. All of that being covered here means that these are areas that you likely are going to be doing more work in to communicate more clearly, to express yourself the way that you intend to. Now, I would also add this part of the sky has to do with learning. It's the skills that you learn, the more immediate short programs, for example, and that's where you might be feeling inclined to put in the time so that you can build and actually move towards being a more skilled self, whether it's attending workshop events, whether it is going to book signings. These become environments where you engage some very powerful lessons personally, but also professionally and practically as well. Engaging your immediate community is part of how you work towards the changes you desire to see in the larger world. Pisces, one of the most immediate applications of this energy is that Saturn is leaving your sign. So right away, you will feel an exhale, like your own energy starts to feel a whole lot lighter very quickly. But Saturn is now moving into a part of the sky that has to do with money you earn, money you spend, self-love, and self-esteem. Now, for some, this is going to be understanding the sacrifices you want to make now to set yourself up for larger financial prosperity in the fullness of time, certainly. You sacrifice now for greater gains later. For others still, it's going to be about realizing what you'd rather be doing for money so that, again, you're setting yourself up for that to be your source of income. Being more intentional, more actively engaged in what you're spending money on is part of the lessons here. Now, outside of money, though, this might represent a sense of working on what healthy self-love and healthy self-esteem look like for you. Where it is that you are in professions that have to do with creating structures or professions that are very tried and true. They've been around for a really long time. You're a specialist of some kind. Well, those are endeavors that likely are going to allow you to feel like your income is able to be that much more steady. Now, whether it feels steady or not, it's almost like the larger question with Saturn always is, can I do this for the rest of my life? And if you're doing something to earn money that isn't worth doing anymore, this is about making those changes so that you're able to earn money in a way that helps you to feel like, yeah, this really is what I could do for the rest of my life. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great transit. Enjoy.